ready to get started? All right, calling this meeting of the Rhode Island Marine Fisheries Council to order. My name is Molly Moran Ogren. I have the honor of serving as chair of the council on behalf of RITEF Director Terrence Gregg. We have a quorum, we have an agenda. Is there any objection to approving the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by consent. The next item we have is the meeting minutes from April 7th, 2025. Are there any recommended changes to the minutes? Is there any objection to approving the meeting minutes as written? Hearing none, the meeting minutes are approved by consent. The next item I have on the agenda is the public comment on any matters not included on tonight's agenda. If there are, raise your hand in the room. Hearing none, or seeing none, is there any on Zoom? All right. Seeing no hands on Zoom or in the room, we'll move on to the next item. We're going to do this a little bit differently today. We're going to go to the proposed items that were publicly noticed. For these items, I go to the Division of Marine Fisheries to present the materials. Then I will go to our council members for questions, and I can entertain a motion after that. These items have been publicly noticed, and there was available comment period, and there was a public hearing held on September 15th. As a matter of standard procedure, I do not typically go out to the public on these items for further commentary of support or non-support. However, I will entertain public testimony on matters of nuance, items that did not get addressed through the public hearing, and if a council member requests it. All commentary will be limited to less than 3 minutes. Okay. The first item we have up is the electronic negative reporting due dates. John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item is bringing our electronic reporting in step with our paper logbook reporting. For electronic, we actually do not have dates established for when you have to submit your negative reports. So what you'll see there is us, first of all, requiring a negative report for any month that there is no activity, and then you'll see the dates when those reports are due, and the allowance that you can enter them 3 months in advance. This is exactly the same as the rules for our paper logbook. Now they will both be the same.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Is there any questions about this? Like electronic reporting, negative? Scott, do you want to provide any further thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Now, this is pretty simple. It's just a consistency with all other data reporting requirements. So, pretty quick.
Great.
Unless someone has a question.
Council members, is there any objection to doing this through consent as opposed to making one of you read out the entire motion? No objection? Okay. I gotta think about the motion now. All those in favor of the division's proposal on electronic negative reporting due dates, is there any objection to the division's proposal to electronic negative reporting due dates as noticed? Hearing none. Motion, or the item is approved through consent. Been a minute. We're coming back from school, okay?
We're just getting warmed up there.
Just getting warmed up. All right. The second item we have is the reporting requirements upon issuance of a new license with sale of vessel and indoor gear.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. So this is another reporting regulation here, and the issue here is that catch and effort reports can be difficult to obtain after a sale has taken place from both either the transferor or transferee. So we are proposing that prior to a license transfer, the catch and effort reporting compliance must be met by both parties, and that's what you see there in the reg. Prior to the sale of the license holder's vessel and or gear, the license holder must be in compliance with all applicable reporting requirements, and likewise prior to issuance of a new vessel. If the applicant currently holds a commercial license, the applicant must be in compliance with all applicable reporting requirements. Basically, we want to get all your paperwork in order before any license transfers take place.
Is there any questions? Scott, any?
Yeah, this is just, thank you, Madam Chair. This is just sort of an opportunity for lost data when people are transferring. We're trying to just make sure that everybody submits all the required reporting information by the license transfer.
In the same vein, is there any objection to this, to having this approved through consent? Okay. Let me get my notes out then. Is there any objection to approving the division proposal for reporting requirements upon issuance or transfer of new license with the sale of a vessel and or gear? Hearing none, this item is approved by consent. Okay. All right, the next item is prioritization categories for the issuance of new licenses, update with revised licensing structure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this issue, we, as y'all know, we switched from the CFL PEL system to a resident standard, non-resident standard system. However, we still have reference to the old licenses in our rules as they apply to, in this case, prioritization. We look back when we're issuing new licenses and we go through our prioritization matrix, we look back 2 years at people's activity. Well, now it's been over 2 years since we've changed regimes, if you will. And there's no longer a need to refer to these two licenses in the prioritization because we don't look back that far. So we're just striking the reference to them from the rules.
Scott, any thoughts?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. We support this as noted. These licenses just don't exist anymore. So removal is appropriate.
Great. Also, is there any objection to approving? All right. I'll say it the whole thing. Is there any objection to approving the prioritization categories for issuance of new licenses, update with revised licensing structure, proposed rule as noticed? Hearing none, the rule is approved by consent. The next item we have is clarifying restricted finfish species.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So this one is a clarification. There's a little bit of confusion regarding our restricted finfish species. One of them, scup, is only restricted part of the year. This was a topic of confusion to folks, so we're making it crystal clear that scup is restricted only when harvested from May 1st through September 30th, and the rest of the species, black sea bass, summer flounder, striped bass, and tautog, are restricted for the entire year. And you can see what we did is we broke it out into two categories: sea bass, ski bass, fluke, striped bass, and tautog up top, restricted all year. Scup only restricted during the summer months.
Is there any questions on this matter? All right. I will just also note, Scott, this is not something that we need to vote on. Is that correct? Or we do?
Yeah. I mean, I think consensus would be appropriate, and I think we can just kind of read it into the record as the division proposal.
Okay.
And then adopt by consent.
Do you want to add any thoughts or?
No, this is honestly, it's poor wording. It's kind of just got a little mixed up, and this just clarifies everything. We just support it as noticed.
Is there any objection to approving the division's proposed language pertaining to the clarification as noticed? Hearing no objections, then language is approved by consent. Okay. This next item we have here is the lobster trap tag transfer application period. John.
Yeah, so thank you. So we were hoping to have something for y'all to vote on here. Instead, it is an update. The issue being, we have all lobster pot fishermen have a lobster trap allocation. part of the fishery management plan was to have a reduction each year of the number of traps each person can fish. That reduction schedule has ended, so the division does feel that we can drop the application period. Right now we have an application period between June 1st and November 30th to apply to transfer pots for the next year, which would begin in May. Actually for state waters, June. So we were going to propose dropping this application period. It does wind up to hinder folks that want to jump into the fishery and order tags, say in like March or February. They couldn't do it, or sorry, transfer tags from another fisherman. Unfortunately, we found out that we cannot do this on our own. We have to get approval from the SFC as it is part of their lobster fishery management plan. So our plan is to see if we can get this part of the rule changed in the fishery management plan. Hopefully come back to y'all in the spring with the removal of the application.
Questions? All right, we will move on. The next item we have on here is the horseshoe crab closure.
So this one is a clarification as well. The issue being that the rule is not clear that harvest is prohibited on the actual dates of the new and full moon, not just the 48 hours preceding and following the new and full moon. So we are proposing to clarifying it, once again, make it crystal clear that you may not harvest 48 hours prior to the full or new moon, on the new or full moon, and after 48 hours after the new and full moon. That's what you see there in the annotated.
All good?
Just to confirm, that's how it's been meant to be interpreted and enforced.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, just the way we worded it, 48 hours before and after the full moon, maybe implied that the day of the moon was fine, which absolutely not. So.
Scott, any thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, as John mentioned, it's a lunar closure, it's a period. Again, forwarding kind of leaves it open to interpretation as to the actual day of the full moon. So it's clarified that it's a period. That's the closure.
Council, are you open to doing consent, or would you like an actual vote? All right. Is there any objection to approving the division's proposed language pertaining to horseshoe crab closure at new and full moon as noticed? Hearing no objection, the item is approved unanimously through consent. All right, the next item we have is addressing the biomedical horseshoe crab harvest on the coastal salt ponds.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this one, you guys might be familiar with, as we talked about it last meeting. There is the issue being that biomedical horseshoe crab harvest is not currently prohibited in the coastal salt ponds. However, there is no harvest currently taking place for a gentleman's agreement among harvesters. There's a little bit of a difficulty of biomedical harvest coming from coastal ponds in that biomedical harvest must be returned to the waters that they're taken from. And if they're taken from the coastal ponds, especially more than one, it can be difficult to return the crabs back from where they are harvested. We did have a stakeholder petition that requested regulatory change in 2024. And the council, you folks tasked us with further development of this proposal in the 2025 regulatory cycle. So here it is for you. Our proposal is to prohibit biomedical horseshoe crab harvest in all coastal salt ponds and Little Narragansett Bay. And there you see the list of our coastal salt ponds and the stakeholder definition of Little Narragansett Bay.
And are there any questions? Maybe I know there was a lot of discussion on this last time, so Scott, can you provide some context?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So, as John mentioned, the way the biomedical fishery operates in states would be difficult, if not impossible, to separate crabs and return them by regulation to some of these coastal salt ponds. Gentlemen's agreements, little difficult for enforcement. I don't want to speak to them, but without with the prohibition of harvest for biomedical in the coastal ponds, there's not this opportunity for harvesters to be in there and kind of be doing both things without enforcement being able to truly identify what they're doing. So we support this as noticed, and that's pretty much it. But happy to entertain any questions, because it is kind of a, just to be clear, this does not restrict bait harvest in the coastal ponds, simply biomedical. Because of the way it operates and returning of the crabs is very difficult.
So you were saying there is no biomedical harvest taking place anyway in those ponds?
Well, there isn't that we know of that are reported, because of the fact that there's one agent that's operating the state on behalf of the biomedical company. They have harvesters, they're receiving crabs from Narragansett Bay. They hold them in aggregate, and then as the company needs crabs, they'll distribute them. So, you know, he's been very open to the fact that, you know, it would be very difficult for him to accept crabs from a coastal pond that now he has to keep separated throughout the entire process, so that when they come back to the state, they return back to the specific coastal salt pond that they came from. He limits his harvest to Narragansett Bay. So this is just, kind of putting it in regulation that we would prohibit biomedical harvest.
Council, do you want to do this by consent? Yes, we want to do it. You want to do it? Alright. You want me to put you on a spot?
Sure. So I will make a motion to accept proposal 1 as written, that we will prohibit, or the state of Rhode Island will prohibit biomedical horseshoe crab harvest in all coastal salt ponds and Little Narragansett Bay as listed. You know, it will be done.
No, that's fine. Okay. You could say this.
As noticed.
Do I have a second? That's seconded by Mr. D'Angelo. Give the floor. Greg, did you want to provide any further thoughts, or anybody else want to provide any further thoughts on this matter?
It makes sense that it would be extremely difficult to return the correct crabs to the correct pond without, it would probably require more infrastructure than financially feasible, so.
Can you just take a look at the motion up here and make sure it's written as you like it? All right, hearing no other thoughts or hands. All those in favor of adopting proposal 1 as written to prohibit biomedical horseshoe crab harvest in all coastal salt ponds in Little Narragansett Bay as noticed, please raise your hand in favor. It's unanimous in favor. Great. The next item we have here is exit entry ratios for unlimited finfish endorsements.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is, we do this every year. You guys are familiar. We go through all of our licenses and determine how many were retired, meaning that they just walked away from the license. It was not transferred to another person. And we do this for both finfish and shellfish. We found this year that 25 licenses, 14 multi-purpose, and 11 standard with unlimited finfish endorsements were retired, not renewed. Right now, we have a rule that says for every 2 licenses that are not renewed, 1 new standard license with unlimited finfish endorsement will be available for issuance. So one thing, we have to always do it in a divisor of 3. That's because we have 3 prioritization categories. So in this case, status quo would result in 15 new licenses or endorsements being issued in 2026. We do have 3 proposals that were given to us besides 2-to-1. First would be a 1-to-1, meaning 1 out, 1 in. That would result in 27 new endorsements available for issuance in 2026. We had another proposal that was 1-0, meaning 1 out, 0 in. That would result in no licenses being issued next year. And then we had another proposal which would say for every 3 out, 1 in, that would result in 9 new endorsements available for 2026. So one thing we've been doing for you folks with these license ratios is just taking a look back in recent history to see how these new licenses have fished relative to our quota species. So here's the graph here. You can see on the y-axis we have total pounds, and you got your various species: black sea bass first, striped bass second, fluke third, scup and tautog. We don't have the full landings for scup and tautog for this year yet, but for the other species, you can see even in 2025, so far, I mean, you're only 2,000 pounds here. It's kind of a minimal impact that these new license holders have been having in the last 2 years. So I can answer any questions.
Is that combined landings?
The council, would you entertain a question from the public?
Was that combined landings or was that for a license holder?
This is combined, that's correct.
Thank you.
Council, are there any other questions?
Okay, yeah.
I'd just like to bring up the point, I was the one that put a 0 to 1 in, because if you look at how the proposal number 2 on the gill letter, and we can't even keep striped bass because the fishery is in such bad shape that you can obviously see the new licenses and then striped bass. And I think that's pretty, I think for you guys, you feel pretty, it's very discriminated. They were handing out new licenses with guys who have had licenses for 30 years, can't even keep striped bass. The fishery is in such terrible shape. We keep issuing more licenses, and this will be the first year that sea bass hasn't got close that us offshore lobstermen can catch. So I mean, I think we're beginning to get to the point that maybe we need to ratchet down on handing out new licenses, let the guys that actually have licenses actually get rewarded for the fish that we're doing, because all these old licenses they weren't active. I think that's a big thing that people have to look at. How active were these licenses before they were retired? Were they sitting in someone's pocket for 10 or 15 years and they didn't use them? That's just a question I have to you guys. I think that should be some details you guys should know before we issue the licenses.
Thank you. If there's no other council questions, Scott?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is really kind of a council decision. Status quo, you've kind of seen what the result of that has been with landings for the past couple of years. It's pretty minimal, I think less than 4,000 pounds total aggregate commercial landings. To Patrick's point, that's the whole idea of the ratio, right? Is that some of them probably weren't active licenses. And the idea is that to offset that inactivity with activity, you have this ratio. So it's really up to the council, I think, to decide where they want to land on this in terms of sort of balancing new entrants and new opportunity for young fishermen and the impacts to quarter members, mainly the restricted quarter member species. So.
So at this time, are there any other questions or commentary? Otherwise, I can entertain a motion. Yeah, can you show the graphic?
So just you kind of started like it didn't make a difference, but why is it when we on the striped bass we see? Why do we see that? Do you know why we see that? Because the other ones don't look. What is that? Black sea bass, the first one looks like it's not that big of a difference at all. Well, it's less, but then why does the striped bass look like that? Do you know? I'm just wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, this is generally what we see. It's sort of opportunity that new license holders are probably familiar with. They're recreational bass fishermen. They do end up getting a license through one of these means, and that's one of the fisheries that they participate in, along with black sea bass and summer flounder. I think are probably the ones that kind of, when you think about a recreational fisherman that acquires a new license, those are the fisheries that he's familiar with. Not in all cases, on a number of different ear types, but I'm going to assume that that's probably the reason why you see it in striped bass more than anything.
And the license, in this mandatory can be for anything. So it's not like you could create a license where you limit one, but not the others. That would be something.
Well, we do limit the categories of these restricted quota-based, managed species. And idea is.
But not for like, you can't say new license holder. You can't do that, right? That would be.
If you require a license through this exit entry ratio, but there's a framework that goes along with this about, sort of a pecking order in terms of somebody that has previously held a lower level license and has maybe worked as a deckhand or maybe landed some of the non-restricted species. But so there's, so it really boils down to kind of, people that are, what we're trying to do is these have part of the community that's interested in becoming commercial fishermen have the opportunity to do so and not kind of create this license that, but yeah, those species are generally the ones that the people target the most, probably the most, marketable.
Yeah.
In my 20-some years of attending these meetings, one of the things that I've most commonly heard is that we need to get younger fishermen into commercial fishing in Rhode Island, and that we want our young folks to have an opportunity to do so. So I think having some licenses available is certainly part and parcel of that.
At this time,
Sorry, I was gonna add to that too, so adding new licenses doesn't allow more striped bass to be caught, it just shrinks the pie per person.
Yeah, right, but, the point that we kind of have on that graph is that the impact is minimum, 2% of the general category quota. But yes, it is opportunity for new fishermen to get into the industry. So, but yes, there are a couple of species for 2026 that will have increased quotas in black sea bass. So there's some additional opportunity that can support increased effort. But obviously, quota changes, allocations change sometimes annually. So what we have for increased quota for next year may change. But again, the council has the opportunity annually to kind of think about the exit entrance ratio.
so it's just 1 year.
Correct.
Can I entertain a motion? Someone's got to do it.
I would like to make a motion to maintain status quo at 2 for 1, which is the current system we have to utilize.
Okay, a second? Well, before we second, let's give Nicole a moment so she can write it, and then I'll wait for a second, just so we can get the language correct. Hey, Greg, is that how you want the motion that you stated? Okay, do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Bethany. Scott, any further thoughts?
Hope I've explained it.
Yeah.
Best I could.
Yeah. Is there any council deliberation on this matter? Are you guys ready for the question? Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of maintaining the status quo for a 2-to-1 exit entry ratio for unlimited finfish endorsements, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 5. There you go. 5 in for yes, and then any opposed? 1, 2 opposed. No abstention. The motion passes 5-2. Okay. The next item we have, the next item we have is the commercial green crab license. John?
Thank you. This year, we have had a new statute adopted, which allows for a commercial green crab license, effective January 1st, 2026. So the license only exists in general law. We need to put it into regulation to actually issue it. And that's what we're doing here. So we are proposing to add a commercial green crab license to rule resulting from the recently passed legislation. So first off, we are putting in the rule what the green crab license can do. It allows you to commercially harvest green crabs by the residents of the state. And if you have another commercial license that allows you to harvest green crab already, a multi-purpose or a unlimited or limited crustacean endorsement, you do not need to get this license. In fact, we will not issue it to you because you do not need it. We are putting the fee is established in the legislation, but we are also putting it in rule as we do for our other licenses. Fee is $10. And then finally, we are adding it to our application deadlines for all of our other licenses. So it'll be treated just like a commercial fishing license for finfish, bivalves, shellfish, or lobsters.
Any questions from the council?
I have a question. Do traps have to be tagged?
That's a great question. We had that today. So for a commercial fisher, you must have a identifying plate in the trap, and you should have buoy colors as well as some identification on your buoys.
Because I see them all over the point hanging off the pilings.
And it is so we get that question about there are a lot of recreational green crab tracks, especially this time of year, and you might see some action on that next year. We'll see.
Good, I got on my wheel. On the boat, it's,
Any other further
I shot
questions?
them off.
Scott? you wanna-
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, all tracks have to have an identification in the recreational, commercial. So, yes, we can do that. But this is a license that was created by the General Assembly there. So we're just kind of moving it into regulation to be consistent with them. And as John stated, we're not sure how many of these might be issued. I feel like there's a lot of licenses that already cover this activity, but regardless, we need to put in regulations.
Is it report to status?
Yes, for commercial.
That's it.
For us that already have license and can already harvest green crabs, now that you've created a license out of it, now I'm going to renew my multi-purpose. Will there be another $10 fee on that? Because
That's covered by all the licenses, as John had stated. This is just if someone wanted to do nothing but commercial green crab. This is kind of an opportunity, General Assembly saw it as an opportunity at a low cost to try to control an invasive species. And that's pretty much what it was. It's already covered by a lot of licenses, as you stated, John had said.
Back to the tagging, there's no language on here right about that.
No, that already exists in regulation.
So
tagging
if
requirement.
the person who wants to get a resident commercial break in, like, they're gonna know that information, right?
Well, they should, read through the regulations. Yeah, if they're gonna participate in a fishery, we would hope that they, are current with all the regulations that pertain to the fishery operating.
speaking about education, I think we're going to try to work with DEM over the winter, right? To recreate. There's probably some education that's needed on the recreational green crab trapping as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can.
Yeah, thank you. We did put out a listserv a couple of weeks ago to make sure that, the start of the tide season, as Mike had said, there's traps, green crab traps everywhere. But I think over the winter, it's, some additional opportunities, through the different associations to make sure that people are aware of the requirements.
Does our division of law enforcement have any, do you want to weigh in on any of this?
No, we brought into the issue with Untitled here, hence the listserv that went out, but we're on board with everything to be tagged.
Okay, I can entertain a motion. Do you want to do it?
It's up to you.
That's it. Right. This one has been publicly noticed, so Mike, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's just a quick question. Is this since green crabs are actually an introduced exotic species, doesn't sort of in making a license or a set of barriers almost counterproductive into managing what is an exotic species?
It wasn't DEM's idea. Yeah, it's probably why DEM didn't propose it.
Okay.
Okay, so now somebody has to pay a fee and be regulated, so they're able to take as many as they want. So, yeah, but it's not up to us at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already.
It's just to make us
statute.
compliant with
But,
the
yeah, I
state
mean,
legislation.
It's sort of, I mean, without the license, if somebody wanted to participate in the green crab fishery, they would have had to, buy a more expensive, higher level license. This kind of does give the opportunity to someone who just wants to target green crabs at a low cost. It's kind of a low value fishery. It's a high volume, low value. And I think the legislature might have seen, the license cost is prohibitive, so they created a low cost commercial license. So it's kind of a tricky one because where these crabs really only have the opportunity to go to a licensed dealer. This is not something that can be sold over the dock for direct sales. So that's something that we might want to think about in the future, is how we incorporate some of these species that are harvested for bait, working with the Department of Health to try to get an additional opportunity for sales. But for right now, it's really kind of targeting a individuals that just want to target.
Great, at this time, I can entertain a motion. Or I can do this by consent if you want to go as notice, but since it's been considered a discussion, I want to offer an opportunity for a motion first. Don't worry.
I can do it. I'll make a motion to accept proposal 1 from the division to add a commercial green crab license to rule resulting from recently passed legislation.
Okay. Give Nicole a second before we go on. Is that what it is? Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Besky. Is there any further discussion on this or comments from the council? Scott, any further thoughts? All those in favor of accepting proposal 1 from the division to add a commercial green crab license to the rule as noticed, please raise your hand. 4 in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. 3 opposed. All right, the next item we have is the Jonah crab claw. Jonah crab claw?
Yeah, thank you. So this one is coming back to you guys. So the issue is that Jonah crab claws inadvertently break off while sorting catch by the harvesters and processing catch by the dealers, resulting in unlawful possession of detached claws. Currently, in Part 5, we have a rule that states only whole Jonah crab may be retained and sold. So at our workshop this summer, July 16th, we presented a proposal for Jonah claw bycatch provision to authorize harvesters and dealers to possess and purchase Jonah crab claws provided the volume is less than 5 gallons. At that workshop, we actually heard that 5 gallons would be too restrictive for larger offshore trips, and that claw allowance should mimic what's permitted in the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission Fishery Management Plan. So we took that back, and the division crafted a proposal that would meet that would be in compliance with that fishery management plan. First off, we amend our minimum size to include detached claws. So for quantities less than 5 gallons, there's no minimum claw size. If the quantity is greater than 5 gallons, all claws must have a minimum claw length of 2 3/4 inches, with the claw length measured along the bottom of the claw from the joint to the lower tip of the claw. And then we also are looking to amend our rules on the possession limit. So we have a bycatch, so we have whole crab, we have directed fishery, unlimited. Bycatch fishery is 1,000 crabs per vessel per calendar day, provided the crab does not exceed the poundage of other species on board the vessel at all times during the fishing trip. That is not changing, although I will state that the difference between a directed and a bycatch fishery is whether or not the fisherman has a lobster trap allocation. If you have a lobster trap allocation, you are considered a directed fisher. So for the possession limit of claws, we have, if you're directed in the directed fishery, you have an LTA, you have an unlimited claw possession limit. If you are part of the bycatch fishery, you can only have up to 2,000 claws. And then the last thing we would do is get rid of that rule that you have to have a whole claw, a whole crab to be in compliance. So since we proposed the rules, we have gotten some feedback, and there has been some concerns raised over the potential increase in effort having negative impact on the stock, in particular our inshore southern New England stock unit. So some information on the Jonah crab stock. In 2023, there was a benchmark stock assessment, and it found that the range-wide, meaning not just inshore, but all of the Jonah crab range, the population remains above historical lows. And we have 4 stocks: offshore Gulf of Maine, inshore Gulf of Maine, offshore southern New England, inshore southern New England. For offshore and inshore Gulf of Maine, it's a neutral to positive stock indicator. Offshore southern New England is also neutral and positive. We don't have enough information on the inshore southern New England stock to provide a condition index. So we say not applicable, or we don't know. So maybe not helpful, but it's where we stand with the stock status.
Oh, sorry. Okay, any questions for the division?
Or just for clarification, your dockside sales would cover if you were to bring in claws. You can sell those to the public as they can, like lobsters and crabs.
The product would have to be live for dockside sale. That's correct.
Scott, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is sort of kind of evolved over time. The original request and what we were thinking when talking to industry was that there's a limited opportunity here, whether it be claws falling off during gillnet operations, tanks that have claws, people that just want to keep some amount of claws for personal consumption. Then it kind of morphed into some of the additional feedback that we got from the industry regarding sort of having a larger scale claw fishery. Although not part of the public comment, we have heard some concerns about the inshore stock of Jonah crabs, mainly state waters. We don't have a lot of information. We can kind of see from the latest stock assessment that it's kind of a beta 4 assessment. So there could be a little bit of concern on whether or not this would increase effort to a point that would impact the stock. But again, that was the original thinking, was that we have this limited opportunity for personal consumption, small level harvests. But I think if there are valid concerns about how far the council would want to go in terms of harvest increases in effort and what that might mean to a stock that's really kind of unknown, the conditions unknown.
I have 2 questions. Are there other local states that attach to us have a similar claw provision?
I think they're mainly mid-Atlantic states that have a clause provision only. Everyone can have one through, it's allowed through the
But they
FMP, so
don't.
neighboring states, but I don't think that our neighboring states do, maybe.
Yeah, I know the FMP, the clause provision was originally designed for one of the southern states. And they later expanded the FMP to avail other states along the coast the same opportunities. So I think there was interest in other states. I don't know about the neighboring states, but definitely there's a prevalence down in the Midland.
The other question, enforcement wise, have there been incidences where claws were being snapped? Have you guys ever encountered incidences where claws were being snapped off intentionally?
We've seen very small amounts on board vessels, and it was typically seemed that they weren't aware it was prohibited.
0 to 2,000 in one jump seems like both to me. Seems like a
Now,
pretty
John
huge-
mentioned the jump, from the knuckle to the tip. What was the dimensions again, John?
2 3/4 inches.
Now, is that a mature crab?
Yes.
It is. Not a lot for enforcement to enforce. You-
In terms of the size,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, right now, there's a size limit on the whole crab, so
Right.
it comes down to the claw. We could do it, but I would imagine the smaller crabs aren't desirable, so small claws typically what we see.
Yeah, not yet. Just to Greg's point, sort of 0 to 2,000, there is a couple of proposals that kind of stagger that. One being this low scale, 5-gallon bucket versus 1,000, 2,000 on the rest. So, yeah, it's completely up to the council. It's just kind of a division sort as allowed in the FMP, and honestly, probably to some degree happening right now. So it's really up to the council, the level of catch that you think would not introduce maybe too much effort. It's tough to say that. I would look to deal with maybe with market conditions and whether or not that's been sort of prohibiting large scale harvest. I know we had pretty substantial harvest back a few years ago, and the market kind of drove that back down. Now it seems to be coming back down. So there are some options between what level of harvest you want to allow.
Yeah, I was just gonna add the 2,000 clause comes from the bycatch provision that you can maintain or keep 1,000 crabs. So 2 claws per crab equals 2,000 claws. That's where the 2,000 came from. And then to Mike's point on the minimum size of the claw, at 2 3/4 inches, that's actually a little bit more conservative than what a legal crab should be.
So if you could originally keep 1,000, that would essentially double the amount of crabs that boat could
It was
catch in a day.
1,000 crabs and 2,000 claws, because you're keeping 2 claws
Right.
per crab.
But you also have 1,000 crabs, and then you could have 2,000, that would be 2,000 crabs harvest.
It's not cumulative.
This
1,000 crabs.
That sounds like.
This doesn't read that way.
Yeah, that sounds
It
cute.
reads like whole crab is one rule, detached clause is another. So you could have 1,000 intact claws, and then 3 crabs, and then 2,000 claws that are 2 3/4.
That's how I'm reading it, the way.
Yeah, I'm sorry if it's presented that way, but the 1,000 crabs is directly related to the pounds of another species on board with 2,000 claws. Doesn't really have that.
Like you just double.
Yeah, so that's even more confusing. So there's, it seems like they're separate.
I will go out to the public. You have 3 minutes.
No, it's just, I was one of the ones that put this together, we gill that, we're ripping the claws off, to get the crabs out of the net anyways. I was thrown overboard, if it's 1,000, if it's 2,000 pounds of claws, maybe you can help pay my fuel bill when we go out, when they're already going over there, or when the lobster in the summer, and we don't have RSW tanks, and the dying, when you go sell some crab claws, I think it's a good opportunity. There's plenty of crabs out there. I don't know about up in the bay. I mean, I don't fish up in the bay, but I think the claw size from what I see is gonna really, that's a pretty good size pole. I was measuring the other day. When I was out there, I seen how big it was, good size crab. About a 5 inch crab, 30. If you're gonna take a quarter, it comes off about a 5 and 1/4 inch crab. Just so you have a good idea.
Great, thank you.
Can there be clarification though, because I'm sure someone's not gonna catch 1,000 crabs and then take all the claws off so they can have 2,000 claws plus 1,000 crabs, so that means 4,000 claws. I'm sure that's not gonna happen, but the way it is written, it did read like it's separate, so can we just add clarifying language?
That's within your guys' purview to suggest to the director as part of proposed rules. I will offer that if you add clarification, I think this is well within the notice period, to like, and within the scope. Is that right, Joe?
I would think so, yeah.
So yeah, if you make that clarification, it's within what's been noticed. So if you would like to do that, you can make that as a motion. If you guys need a second, but unless there's other motions to be made.
In aggregate, yeah, if somebody wants to make a proposal, I have one last question. The stone crab fishery in Florida, the assumption is that I think 40-some% of the crabs live from the studies when they're clawed or declawed. Do we have any idea what the survivability rate is with these crabs if we snap the claws and toss them out?
I don't think they live it. I think it's a lot different. I think that knuckle joint attached to the body get ripped out and that probably bleed to death pretty quickly.
Because that's why Florida allows the stone crab fishery.
Yeah, they make our crab's a little different when you break that bite. I do think the crab is dying, and I recognize the gill members here wanting to be able to keep the claws because they're throwing them over dead, but because that practice is already going on, and we can see that the offshore southern New England fishery is still healthy, I don't think it's having a huge detriment to that population. But I do think if we were to enact this, I mean, 2,000 claws, that's a lot of claws. I couldn't speak to how the offshore fishery would handle it, but I do think it could have some very negative repercussions for the inshore fishery. I think that the jump from nothing to 2,000 is huge.
So are we able to put that distinction in now? Or
If
is
you
it
want
a good fit to like say, I don't know how you would define offshore, outside state waters or something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we don't have any authority over federal waters. So this regulation will apply to state waters and vessels landing in Rhode Island. So what activity takes place out in
So
federal
it's
waters is kind of, and this language is directly from the fishery manual.
Right, so it doesn't matter that they're in federal waters. They would have to land in Rhode Island to do.
So that the assessment doesn't has that inshore offshore component. I don't know if it's state waters versus federal waters or whether it's some other statistical.
Well, you could put the distinction that landings from federal waters can have a rule and landings from state waters can have a rule, they land in Rhode Island.
I would caution that if you did that, if you made that distinction as a council, that is not within the scope of the proposed rule. That would need to go back out to public comment.
Yeah, I would also just add that it sounds easy, but actually distinguishing a landing as coming from state waters versus federal waters is very difficult. Along with the data we get from a VTR or a state waters fishing report, it's very difficult to tease out that data. You really need to use BMS data, and that's not required on all boats. So when you go to the dealer and enforcement sees that data, there's really no way for the dealer to tell it came from state, federal waters. They don't know which regulation they have to follow. It could be complicated. Make that distinction.
I think that the best course of action for this one would probably be status quo. It seems like potentially a lucrative opportunity, but at the same time, I mean, the crab market a few years ago was high. Now it's dipped a little bit, but who knows what it'll be in the coming years. I think that riding it out with where we're at would be the best option.
Just to clarify, Mr. Silva, so the status quo would be not adopt this proposal at all. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Do you want to make that motion? Or because we can make a
I would
motion.
make a motion to status quo, not adopt this proposal.
Before I get a second. Do I have a second on this? Does that look correct? for what you
Yeah,
want?
so the crab fishery is the same, but in the farmland is not the same. You cannot, it has to be the same as it is now.
Do I have a second on this? Skip the discussion.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Anthony. Okay.
I would be okay with a 5-gallon bucket of crab claws as bycatch for just, I don't like to see stuff be wasted. I don't see anybody gonna snap off a 5-gallon bucket like just to come home. But if they're getting them in their nets, or if they're just picking them up off the deck after the traps come in, I would be okay with trying to find a little way to salvage. It's not gonna make them any money, but I would be fine with a 5-gallon bucket of crab claws as bycatch. That's true bycatch, not snap and claw.
Yeah, but there's no way to dictate that, you know, like a 5-gallon bucket of bugs. I catch it.
Yeah, no, I don't see somebody going out commercial all day and then somebody's gonna sit there and snap another bucket of claws, but maybe I'm wrong. I would be okay with them, just because I'm sure there are claws that end up on the deck. I'm sure there are claws that end up in nets.
Yeah, unless it was a directed thing, I would be concerned about the quality thing, something that you mentioned was, you have some dead crabs at the end of the day. For me, those crabs are going over back into the ocean, those are dead. For some people, that, you know, a couple of claws that they can make a few bucks on, I don't think that's a good option either.
Can I ask a clarifying question to the audience?
Yes, it is, but we are going to be limited in this response.
So Patrick, how many claws do you get in the gill nets in a trip? Is 5 gallons way too
Yeah,
little?
I thought that, at first, when we first talked about it, was at least a tow line, what are you gonna do with a 5-gallon bucket?
So
They run a 5-gallon bucket in Champlain, what are you gonna do with it? You know, let's face the fact, we're all talking about a little bit of money here, that's a couple $100. Would help out tremendous when we throw them, when we're this, throwing them overboard anyways. So I don't think you're gonna really see this big crab claw thing. This crab claw, we used to be able to sell crab claws up until 5 years ago. Just so everyone knows, it's not no brand new thing. We used to be able to keep crab claws about 5 years ago, and then they changed it. Maybe I'm dating myself, maybe about 10 years ago, but we used to be able to sell crab claws. I know Mike knows. We used to sell crab claws and everyone brought them in. Now all of a sudden, we're not gonna be able to bring them in. We couldn't bring them in until this last little bit of time. Atlantic Green or Marine States are saying we can keep them. I don't see what the big deal is. Let us keep our crab claws and that's that. It's a bit wide open market. And if you think about it right now, you even have a worse situation because you don't need a license to go out and harvest 1,000 crab right now whole. So think about that. You don't even need a state license to go harvest crabs in state waters right now. You don't need a trap allocation, you don't need a fire allocation. So that's just where I stand on it right now. Just, do another go at it.
Yeah, so this is going back, I mean, this is old information, 20 years ago for sure, anyway. How you get a crab out of a gill net, you don't pick the crab out, you take the 2 claws immediately and snap them off. We used to bring in like 10 or 15 totes years ago, crab claws, you ice them up, and you're allowed to sell them. Which brings me to 2 points, so you're not gonna, it would be impractical to sit there and try to pick a crab, a complete whole crab out of a gill net. You just, you know, it would be too much time. Just sort of rip the claws off really quick and pull the body out, toss it over, and we used to save the claws. Which brings me back to the qualifying thing when they said that to be a directed person, you need to have a trap allocation, which there are guys that have gill net licenses and they have a lobster non-trap allocation. I don't know, did we need to leave them out? I don't know, just a point I figured I'd bring up.
That's helpful. I will offer that as the motion stands that we're soliciting commentary on is to adopting status quo, but I will take a note of that as well. Scott, do you have further commentary?
Only if the council has questions. I do believe Patrick was incorrect in the fact we do need a license to harvest crab, Jonah crab in state waters. And it's directly tied to the 1,000-pound equivalent. And that's the whole idea of year types where you don't have an LTA like gill nets and trawls. So you can keep Jonah crabs as long as it up to 1,000 pounds, as long as it's equal to 1,000 pounds of other species or aggregate species. Aggregate catch.
We can have a restricted unrestricted finfish license and go on and set crab traps, correct? This one of these, let them know correctly. Because you don't need an LTA, so anything capable of catching, you don't need a restricted finfish license technically, anything. By the law, it's really written right now.
You would need a unlimited shellfish.
You would need to have a.
I'm sorry,
you'd have to have
before
a
we have
limited-
this discussion, does this pertain to the motion?
Yeah.
So
I was just.
does this discussion pertain to this motion particularly, the licensing of Jonah crab?
When there is no license.
It's up to
So
you,
I'm just gonna say we can parking lot that and discuss it later, but as it pertains to the motion, we're gonna stay directed with our council members now. Thank you. Is there any commentary or further deliberation because we need to keep going? You guys ready for the question? Okay.
Well, I just feel like, I agree with Greg that I want to find a way to make this work, but the way it's written out, it seems like it's not clear and could result in too much harvest.
I feel like we got into like a lot of other conversations when the conversation was lack of clarity. And then now we have this federal water stakeholders, and now we're completely like rejecting the whole proposal. But I don't really know how to have the clarity, but I feel like that would have been a better solution to have some clarity and wait to see if there's potential harm in allowing people to keep.
What I'm understanding between this council, and I don't typically go out on a limb here, but what I'm understanding is there's a significant lack of clarity from our council members to offer a full vote on materials and a motion that would actually be approved through the public comment rulemaking period now. So regardless of the clarity that we would put in, it would almost theoretically be outside the scope of that publicly noticed rule, which means we have to go back up to public comment anyways. So I don't typically vote, and I don't plan to vote, but I will offer that your concerns will still be heard by the director, and that if you guys do take this approach of adopting status quo, these concerns don't get unheard by the director, right? They're still considered, and then the division still has an opportunity to do further public comment if that's the case. So I just want to offer, as you're thinking about voting yes or no on this proposal, there are future opportunities as well. But if you want to bake in a lot of extra clarity that requires a lot of policy analysis, that almost certainly will need to go back up to public comment. About as close as I'm ever going to go out on a limb there.
Well said, Madam Chair.
Are we all ready for the question or for the commentary? Question. All those in favor of adopting status quo for Jonah crab 12 possession limits and minimum sizes, please raise your hand in favor. Adopting status quo, not doing anything. 1, 2, go in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. And we have 1 abstention. All right, we're still on this. So I will entertain another motion. I will not take any further commentary until a motion is made, because that is what we can discuss on. Nicole, would you mind going back to the proposal?
Well, I understand the importance of trying to reduce mortality discards in any fishery, but if that's how you get the crabs out of the net, and that's what's taking place anyway, and we can see that the offshore southern New England area has a healthy stock, but we don't have the info for the inshore stock, I don't think it's a good time to incentivize bringing in crab ponds. You know, I do think with the large volume of crab ponds being landed, which I think there would be if we enacted this law, that could adversely affect the whole crab market, which, you know, is up and down, but I don't see how this could benefit it.
Are you concerned with the directed fishery being able to unload land unlimited clause, or is it more the bycatch fishery? Do you think?
I don't know if there's a difference with it so much as how many ponds we take to market, you know, and then what kind of price would you get for these ponds if there's a large amount of them available, and then if there is a ton of ponds available, who wants to buy whole crabs anymore?
For clarifiers.
I don't think that guys that are catching whole crabs are gonna start breaking off the claws and just landing that. They already have unlimited ability to land whole crabs, so it's more about the bycatch fishing, the people that are already have to snap it off, being able to land some of that. So if we can just clarify this to reduce, you know, it bothers me, there's 2,000 claws and the 1,000. So if we could just add some clarifying language there that it's not cumulative, we're not really changing what's already happening.
I disagree. I think we're voting on whether or not to allow the land of ponds, right?
Yeah, so the landing will change, but what's happening in terms of out there and like the gill netters having to break off the claws anyway, throw the dead crab back, now they can land, you know, an amount of claws that aren't gonna change the market, I don't think.
Well, I disagree. I think that 2,000 ponds is a lot of ponds where before you have to bring in the whole crab. I think that's 5 ponds, and there aren't that many gill netters, but it now would be available to all fish. You know, that's for sure. We don't have the data, as Scott said, for the inshore fishery, but maybe for people with smaller boats, it would be a lot easier to bring in a couple sorts of claws than 15 crates of crabs. Also would be the quality control aspect, you know, break on the claw, hopefully you put it on ice, but that's something to consider.
A valuable conversation. I know.
So we can't, from what you said, you couldn't just define the bycatch fishery as gill net right now.
That would need to go back.
That's too much.
You could, however, ask to vote on this and send it back. You could make that, but it would still allow the director to make a decision on that, but it would be a very loud statement to send it back, but that's effectively the same as what you just voted against. You can do
But
it.
I guess it could, but yeah, but it might say that the council is
Clarify.
open to this. We need more research and work done versus status quo. We don't want to hear this anymore.
You can direct the, yeah, you can make that part of your motion.
Okay,
No comments on this, so
yeah, that's
hearing
true too.
comments, so
So you could solicit for public comment. You could do that.
Okay, yeah. I can take a shot at a motion. Maybe help, I'm sure, could have done this beforehand, but I didn't really understand everything else.
Nicole's pretty talented at getting it. Go ahead.
So I'll make a motion to send the development of the Jonah crab claw possession limit and minimum size back to workshop to be considered for the next regulatory cycle.
Scott? Well, hold on. So procedurally, this we're gonna find, because you've made the motion, I don't have a second, I don't take commentary on it typically. But Scott, do you have like a way to help
Thank
kind
you,
of
Madam
craft
Chair,
this?
and thanks, Dave. Thanks to the entire council for working through this. That particular motion's a little unclear to me. The language came out of the FNP, the 1,000 pound crab that's currently in regulation, the black text. So I would just ask that, I appreciate the motion, I would just ask for a little clarity of what type of language the division you would like us to develop. And I don't expect an updated stock assessment anytime soon. So it's not like we're going to get additional information on stock status. It's going to, that might change the council's decision on what level of harvest is appropriate.
Would you, maybe I can offer some assistance, not that I'm crafting this, but maybe there's some options. You could say, bring this back to the spring regulatory cycle with clarifications on X, or you could say with further public commentary on, or to evaluate the language on the industry, like you have to direct the division to kind of do.
Yeah, okay. To further define the bycatch fishery, or to investigate if it's a gillnet only detached clause. Solicit public comment on further refining the definition of a bycatch fishery.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yeah, sir.
So there's no claw harvest now, so, and is this an opportunity to kind of?
Yeah, I think we're in a bind, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we don't have any information on where claw bycatch takes place, right? It's not like there's a fishery that exists right now. So I'm trying to help the council sort of task the division on exactly what you like us to analyze.
So how about developing a detached clause for gillnet only?
That's the council to make that motion if you want. I don't know where we would get any information from that might help inform a decision on that, though.
Public comment, perhaps?
Right, but in terms of like what the harvest is, or the bycatch is, or the harvest could be difficult for us to.
So the observers on the
like a
gillnet
pilot
vessels,
project or something like that.
the project where you have the observers on the gillnet vessels, they are only taking account for striped bass and measuring other stuff, reporting other things.
They won't
They do
cover that.
measure
They won't be
other
reporting.
things, but I don't think I looking for that project.
So state waters only would cover any federal boats, which is number one, and number two is we will get total weight of other catch on board the vessel, but they're not counting how many crabs or if there's claws versus full crabs.
And there's no crab in state water for that. But it's the gillnet.
That's not. No, I'm just trying to, the reason I voted not for status quo is because I want something to be developed here that can allow detached clause, but I understand what you're saying, Russell, and I think the way that it's noticed now, it could lead to, unintentional harvest amounts.
Well, we're trying to avoid regulatory discards here, mortality discards. But at a certain price point, if those claws become more valuable than the whole crab, well, now I'm bringing in claws. Now I'm throwing back the crab that's dying. And the whole reason is just trying to avoid those discards. But we'll be creating them. Right?
Yeah, that's why I want to go forward the way it is.
But if you give it a 1 year, it's
I'm sorry, not teaching for the public.
Mayor. I mean, is just a question for the council. Is there a reason why the council is not supportive of a small scale 5-gallon incidental limit? Everybody's kind of
I think
going
there
just
was,
over that. So just-
Right, I tried to kind of get that through.
It seems like 5 gallons is gonna. So why put in the unnecessary? burden
Yeah,
on
the only reason
DEM?
I ask is because they're kind of like asking the division to look at some other substantial catch that could occur through doing that, so some other
Okay.
catch. So I don't know if I'm a little,
I just saw it as a means of trying to cut down on bycatch a little bit. I'm fine with the 5 gallons, but I don't know if there's the council. It would certainly not gonna affect the market at 5 gallons. So there's no way a 5 gallon bucket affects the price point on the market.
I suppose not, but it's still creating some mortality discharge, whether it be at state or federal, state or federal waters that we're trying to avoid. I can lay a 5 gallon clogs, and there's some crabs around, I'm gonna have 5 gallons of clogs and blow that. Crabs.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Scott. So, we're not talking about the whole crab, we're talking about the bycatch, right? That's like the main issue that we've been
Yeah,
discussing.
well, the option is though people could snap the claw off.
Yeah, so I was gonna get to that, because is there really, like, couldn't we just in the detached claw, couldn't we just say, like, so that it's like the total amount is still 2,000 claws, maybe maybe 800 of those crabs, so you get 1,600 attached claws, and then the rest you make up by detached claws, you know what I mean? So that it doesn't allow people to kind of like interpret this in a way to say, I have my 1,000 crabs and then I have an extra 400 detached, you know, so that in total, no matter how they're coming, you're still sticking to 2,000 claws. So for the people who are catching 1,000 claws, it doesn't matter. If you have a fisheries, you can't keep them because you already have 1,000 crabs. So your 2,000 claws are accounted for. But like, I think that's where the issue at that was lying, where like, for me at least, the lack of clarity, where if there's a way that like 2,000 claws, but like not on top of the 1,000 crabs you already have. So, because it doesn't really mean anything. For people who have bycatch, then they're still staying under that limit, right?
I think, Mel, I think what you're missing is that other types of fishing could start fishing, like just, in other words, if it's in a trap like a lobster, yeah, you carry it a crab. But right now, if you were a netter and you got a crab stuck, now they can't sell them. So you'd be potentially opening another part.
And that's why they're trying to kind of
Well,
be really specific with which type of.
So it would potentially expand the number of commercial fishermen that were able to harvest crab.
Is it?
That's
Because the gill netter's not gonna, he can keep 1,000 crabs, right now.
whole crab, as long as it's-
Whole crab.
But no gill netter's taking the whole crab, right? 'Cause it's
Yeah, but
breaking
you're not gonna
apart.
start breaking them apart just for this, they're already breaking them apart.
But they can sell them.
Right, so now they can't, so they're wasting them.
Yes.
So that's what I'm trying to find a way and avoid, a dragger that picks up crap. Now he's gonna start snapping off claws and keeping that. We don't want that necessarily, right?
Could happen, I guess.
So it's like, maybe my motion is to ask the division to develop like different amounts of detached,
Gear type.
yeah, different amounts of detached claws possession limits by gear type.
Which again is not part of this.
Yeah, but that's the
So we
one I'm
have
trying to
to-
like send it back to do more work, and then Scott's like, well, what do we want us to do? Nice, I mean, that reflects.
I think Scott already spoke to this, but what we're dealing here, we have two bounds. We have the upper bound, which is unlimited for the directed fishery and 2,000 crabs and 1,000 crabs and 2,000 claws. Or we have the minimum, which is the 5 gallons. Anywhere in between or setting anything specific for gear type, we don't have any data to inform that. So it would be whatever the council wants, and we can bring that out through the next regulatory cycle, but we would not be able to analyze it in terms of what sort of impacts that's going to be, or how many people or operations it will impact.
But it could be a chance for public comment or fishermen ideas on different proposals. If the council says this is too much, come back with us with different ideas. You know, the fishermen can do that if they want to. Doesn't have to be DEM to send it back to workshop.
Have a motion on the board, so you could add in your. John?
Oh, Dave, I was just gonna say, we often have difficulty parsing a catch by gear because the dealer doesn't know where it came from. However, in this case, you could require that the claws only come from someone with multi-purpose with gill net. That's as far as you could go, because once it comes into the dealer, you don't know what gear.
Yeah.
As far as, so.
And that leads to your point, if you want to amend what you're trying to say as a motion pertaining to gear types. You do that, but that would have to go back out to public.
Which I think is where we're gonna get helpful information from what this conversation has led to.
You can edit that. Or if anybody else wants to take a whack. I don't have a second.
Say further, defining the limits of a detached claw bycatch fishery by gear type.
That's what I was thinking, but it doesn't sound like that would work well with the dealers, but that's what.
But then it could just be like John, it's just gill net is what it comes up back to. Okay, you can do gill net only, detached claws, they can handle that. I don't think I'm asking DEM to do something, we can't come up with different options now. There are different options out there, so let's send it back, get some more feedback from the industry on it.
So I think if we just
Sorry, I
reject
just
the
wanna clarify.
proposals, they could come back up in workshop. Any crabber is welcome to bring up anything at the workshops next year. I mean, we have certain proposals that take a couple of years to get through.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. I think I already messed that up, and not like the stats quo.
I think I can, what I'll do is I can, well, typically, Robert's Rules of Order would prevent me from doing this. I think I can entertain a motion to make status quo again after further deliberation, and we ask the question too soon.
But I don't think that, this is different though, because it's saying that we want something done.
Yeah.
So you
So
need
I actually
to,
don't think
you
I
need to
should
draft
vote
your
for status
motion.
quo. Yeah.
to say what you want done.
Further defining the development of a detached claws bycatch fishery. You know, you could put by gear type, or just leave it without that. I think just leave it without that.
So this is what you want it to say?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second? Seconded by Robert.
Sorry, a second.
Okay. Any further commentary? Scott?
No, we'll do our best to, I think what eventually is going to happen is we're going to pretty much bring very similar proposal back out, solicit industry feedback, get some more ideas on who's actually, who might be the gear types that you might want to address, and I think that's clear to what's trying to. It's really going to develop. It's going to be developed based on industry input because we don't have information to kind of inform anything else. So it's really going to be both the council is supportive of industry proposals might be acceptable or not. So.
I think that captures what I'm trying to get at, because there's no comments here on the proposed law, but it's obviously got people have different opinions on it.
We might end up exactly what you want.
Yeah, I think we dance around back to the status quo, and I think it's not so much on the DEM as much as the industry to submit another proposal, right?
And there was no comments in the committee. There were no
I don't think
Yes, I did.
there were any comments on it.
There's no comments.
That's why it's like concerning that there's obviously a different viewpoint, but no public comments on it.
No comments were received.
I don't know, some of these are, somebody's
All
not
right,
writing that
So
check.
is there any further deliberation? You guys ready for the question? You got more to do? All those in favor? All those in favor to bring the development of the Jonah crab claw possession limit and minimum size to the spring regulatory cycle. Solicit public comment on further defining the bycatch fishery. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in favor. All those opposed? One opposed? Next item.
I'm sorry, can we go back to the other motion? I just want to make sure we have the
Oh, the vote?
the vote slide before. 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, right? We got 4 votes, that's all. I have an issue.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Next item is the summer flounder exemption certificate. Is that right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can't believe it's been 5 years, but in 2020, we were doing right sizing is the right word, but we were putting some more regs around our fluke exemption certificates. One of which was to have an expiration date, and we decided back then to have it go 5 years into the future, and then we would have everyone renew their fluke exemption certificates. So here we are. It's 5 years now. So there are two things here. One, we are required to do a mailing by October 1st, 2025, which we've already done to all certificate holders. And all renewal applications currently must be received by the department or postmarked by December 31st, 2025 to be considered for renewal. So the reason why we're doing this is prior to having any expiration dates, you just were issued a fluke cert, and we didn't know what happened to it. Once it was out there, you might have upgraded your vessel, you might have sold your vessel. We didn't know, basically, and we wanted to get a handle on how many were out here. That's why we have them being renewed every 5 years. So one thing that we did say, though, is we weren't sure how this was all going to work. Was 5 years too long, too short, what have you? So we wanted to put it back to the council as to did the 5 years work. So we do have a proposal saying the division is proposing that we go another 5 years and then renew. So we would just notify everyone October 1st, 2030, and then have everyone renew 2031. So that's our proposal is 5 years. I will say I've been going through these, the applications we already have, and I was talked off the ledge by my colleagues this afternoon. And 5 years does seem pretty, every year would be a little tedious, I think, for these things because they are on a vessel. 5 years will allow us to catch up with any odd vessel sales that might have taken place or people who dropped out of the fishery for whatever reason. And it might allow us in the future to perhaps issue more of these things, depending on how many drop out, similar to what we do with our exit entry ratios with fishing licenses. So long-winded way, I hope I didn't steal any Scott's thunder, why we're proposing 5 years.
Scott, any more thunder?
If I can read that, but just for the thank you, for the council, this is just kind of this continued sort of definition of the universe of certificate holders. We really want to make sure that we know exactly where these certificates are, and we think that 5 years is an appropriate time frame for that.
Oh.
I'd like to see it move to 10 years. Got 7. I think it's cumbersome to have to go to Dan's office to renew on a 5-year period. I think that Dan and John have a good handle on who's active and who's not. I think that first go around definitely helped the division, but I would like to see it go to 10 years.
Is that a motion?
Motion.
Motion to change.
Moves good. Change it from a 5-year period to a 10-year period on the exemption renewals.
Language would read to 2040.
Correct.
Well, no, wait, 2035.
2035.
I can do that. Do I have a second on that? Seconded by Ms. Angela. Commentary? Besides, do you want to add any more?
It just takes a lot of time out of your business day to do the renewal process. Again, 5 is probably good for some people. It's not good for someone that has 7 of them.
Does that look right liquid thing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Any further commentary? Scott?
In Madam Chair, Appreciate the motion, Mike. Seems a little, 10 years ago, a lot of things can happen in 10 years, but, this is council supports it. So.
I have a question. In the last 5-year period, do you know like what percentage of change there was? Like how many boats roughly dropped out, like 20%, 10%?
Hard to say now because we just put out the letter October 1st. Just by Dan and I eyeballing it, we don't expect too many more. We don't expect many to not renew. Until we see what comes back, we won't know. I will say, and then as you know, there's another fluke exemption rule coming. One thing we did notice is that there are a lot of just, things that folks probably don't think it's necessary to form the division of, okay, this guy retired, he's not part of the corporation anymore, but his name's on the fluke cert. Oops, we got to fix that, okay? The next rule kind of deals with that a little bit, so I don't see an issue in 10 years, although it does put the onus, as I know it's going to be part of my spiel for the next one, on the fluke certificate holder to keep the department up to date with what's going on with the vessel. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, just thinking about this a little bit more. The original intent of sort of this process is to eventually identify our certificate holders and potentially issue more certificates, less certificates, depending on fishery status and things like that. I guess I'm a little concerned that our ability to move into another phase will kind of be stretched out for 10 years. And I know that the certificate's value lies in sort of the large vessel fleet right now, the winter aggregate program. It's tough to understand what might happen in the future and whether or not the need for exemption certificates might be greater from the fleet. And with a 10-year window of not really knowing what's happening with a permit, it might inhibit the division's ability to kind of work through some of these, what we consider to be the next phase of certificate issuance and things like that. So I just wanted to make that point that, again, it's kind of
I'd like to make one more comment. With the only state of the eastern seaboard that has to do a renewal process, North Carolina, Virginia, New York, Massachusetts, there's no renewal process.
Further commentary? Otherwise, are you ready for the question? Yeah. All right. All those in favor of recommending the adoption of the next summer flounder exemption certificate renewal cycle for 2035. Please raise your hand if you vote yes. You approve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor. All those opposed? 1 opposed. Motion passes. The next item we have. Well, this is the last item of the proposed notice. Yeah. This is the summer flounder.
This is another summer flounder exemption.
Okay. This was the last one of our publicly
Correct.
noticed. Okay, very good. Okay, John.
thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is also a rule concerning summer flounder exemption certificates. So right now, our rule does not specify a time period in which applications for summer flounder exemption certificate transfers must be submitted after a change in vessel ownership. So this can be an issue, and we're seeing this now with the renewal process, in that right now, if a change of ownership occurs on a vessel, until the division is notified and that change of ownership is given to us, that fluke certificate is invalid, okay? Doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that it is no longer, it does not allow you to participate in winter one until you've updated your paperwork. So right now, if a vessel changed hands and you didn't notify us beforehand, per reg, that is invalid until you notify us, okay? That could disrupt fishing operations. So we are giving a 60-day period for, if a transfer takes place, for folks to let us know that this has taken place, to let us update our update our records so we know who is the owner of the fluker, aka the vessel as well that's on. So we just propose that after 60 days, you would have to submit us, you'd have 60 days to tell us about a change in ownership. Otherwise, after that 60 days, it would be invalid until that change in ownership application has come to us. So, so it does interact a little bit with that last rule in that, it does put a little bit of a bounds on it. Once again, we really want to know our universe with these fluke certifications. So.
Scott, any?
Amen, Jonah. I'm sure John did a great job. But the 60 days is really kind of, again, just us understanding where a permit went to. It makes it invalid, and then it kind of forces someone through another mechanism. Maybe they come, they apply for the winter aggregate program, find out that it's not valid. So this kind of gives us a little bit. It's not removing the certificate. It's just making it invalid until the correction is made where the transfers.
Should it say somewhere that it is invalid after the 60 days? Or is that just assumed that everybody knows that?
It would be, I think that's in.
It's in on the
next section. Okay.
So it's just that it's already, but not as a notice.
So just so I'm correct, the transfer is only for Rhode Island residents, not for someone that buys a vessel out of New York and has both previously had Rhode Island fluke exemption.
Has.
Okay,
Has
so
it had?
okay, so I'll just use one boat for example. Heather Lynn was sold to Montauk. Okay, I'm not sure who the owner is, but I don't think he's a Rhode Island resident. So is he allowed to be in the exemption program or not?
Yeah, I don't think we restrict to Rhode Island residents.
Okay.
We do not.
So someone could have a boat in New Jersey, buy a boat out of Rhode Island,
And the certificate.
and a certificate and be able to use it.
As long as they have a resident cap, they would have.
Resident capture
Or a.
or a paper cap. Okay. Good question of that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the idea of this, right? It's to understand where these permits are.
Right, so I was
And if
under
that
the impression there was
transfer
just for
takes place,
Rhode Island residents, but I guess there's a go around.
I mean, there's been some, not bona fide proposals, but some discussion around limiting exemption certificates to Rhode Island residents, but.
I was just curious, I'm not against it, I just wanted to make sure that it's in fact okay to do.
Yeah.
Any further thoughts? I can entertain a motion though. Yeah.
I make a motion to accept proposal 1. Transfer applications be submitted to the department no later than 60 days after the change in ownership.
A moment, that was.
$60 is generous, very generous. National Fisheries at the day of the sale, you apply for your application.
Does that look right to you? Before I get a second?
Does.
Do I have a second on this motion? Seconded by Mr. Rudder. Any further commentary? You ready for the question? All those in favor of accepting proposal 1, division proposal 1, transfer application be submitted to the department no later than 60 days for the change in ownership as noticed. Please raise your hand in favor. Unanimous. Okay, that concludes our items for the publicly noticed proposed regulations. We do have 2 items for our shellfish management areas. Now, because shellfish doesn't have public comment and rulemaking, we do go out to the public for these two. But what I will do first is hear the proposal. I will go out to the council for questions, go to the division for perspective, and I will then entertain public comment. However, public comment will again be limited to 3 minutes for public comment. Make it quick, and then you only get one. So the first item we have up is Bissel Cove oyster harvest. Moratorium expert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So background here, right now, harvest possession moratorium has been in place in Fiscal Cove, Fox Island Management Area since 2010 for the harvest of oysters. We have a division proposal to end the current moratorium. The restoration is no longer active. We're no longer working in that management area for oysters. Recruitment has not been observed in the area in recent years. The coach habitat is being silted over, and commercial and recreational shore digging would be open daily. Commercial boat harvest would be open per the management area schedule. We did have staff discussion on this, and their recommendation was 9-1-1 in support of the division's proposal to allow the moratorium to expire.
So typically, I would go out to our chair, which is not here. Is there any commentary on this or questions before I go to Scott? Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You can see from the support from the staff that the division doesn't have any concerns about it and support as another. So I'll just look to Eric Schneider if he wants to add anything else. Eric, do you have anything to add?
I'll just add, thanks Scott, thanks Madam Chair. I'll just add one minor clarification in that this management area kind of has two spatial components. One of it includes an area that's closed to harvest due to water quality impairments. And so we do have some restoration work that's currently active in that area, but that's already protected by that water quality. So it doesn't affect really anything you need to consider, but just a minor point there.
So typically our chair, our staff chair would make the motion, but we don't have that. So I have you to make the motion.
I make a motion to accept the division proposal for the Bissel Cove, Fox Island Shellfish Management Area oyster harvest moratorium. That's the staff recommendation, as recommended by the staff.
Is that correct? Before I get a second? Okay, do I have a second? Second amendment. Scott, any further commentary?
Nothing further.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to offer commentary on this motion? Mike? 3 minutes?
Sir. Yeah, as a member of that committee, I attended that committee, and I think from a good scientific standpoint, this is a good move. And I think the key issue here is the silted over culch area. If it's silted over culch, you're not going to get any more oysters sitting there. So I think probably the best way would be for the industry to work the bottom, basically bring it up. So that's would be how I would put it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any commentary on Zoom? There's no further public commentary. Is everyone ready for the question?
Is there a date this will become effective, or is that somewhere else in the regs?
Eric?
Thanks, Madam Chair. It expires on its own if no action was taken, or given the action that you proposed in the motion on November.
But we don't need to say that, that would just.
Correct, yeah.
All those in favor of accepting the division proposal for the Bissel Cove Fox Island Shellfish Management Area Moratorium as recommended by the Shellfish Advisory Panel, please raise your hand if you are in favor. 1, 2, 3. All in favor. Okay, the next item we have is Quonochontaug Pond oyster harvest moratorium. I know, I said it right.
So, So, by way of background, we have a harvest and procession moratorium in place in Quonochontaug Pond since 2010 to promote restoration and enhancement efforts. So here the division is proposing to continue the pond-wide oyster moratorium until December 31st, 2029. Our rationale being to protect oyster restoration and enhancement work located in the oyster reserve areas sited outside of the existing closed areas in the pond. We would also be it would provide an additional 4 years of potential recruitment to natural reefs supported by mature oysters on the restoration reefs and future restoration and overseeding. It also allows for information for additional survey work for our habitat suitability index development and our shellfish restoration evaluation plan, which is being considered for management. Once again, there was SAP discussion and a recommendation. They voted 9-0 in support of the division proposal to continue the pond-wide oyster moratorium until December 31st, 2029. That's 4 more years.
Any questions? Scott, do you want to wait for a motion or do you want to weigh in?
No, I can't. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say that there's a lot of ongoing research activities that are going on in the pond, and with unanimous support from the advisory panel, division would support that.
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Great.
I make a motion to support the SAP recommendation and extend the Quonochontaug Pond Shellfish Management Area Oyster Harvest Moratorium until December 31st, 2029, as it currently exists.
You did that, yeah. Is that look correct before I get a second? Okay, can I have a second? Seconded by Mr. D'Angelo. Scott, any further commentary? Council members? Is there anyone in the public that would like to solicit an opinion in favor or against this motion? Mr. Rice, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, again, this one almost for the opposite reason of the Bissel Cove one. It's not something over. It's an active restoration area. It is historically very prime oyster grounds, and this is welcome.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that would like to solicit an opinion? Okay, council members, are you ready for your question? All right, all those in favor of supporting the SAP recommendation to extend the Quonochontaug Pond Shellfish Management Area oyster harvest prohibition to December 31, 2029. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so those are for our voting matters. We have some old business that we need to discuss, but not necessarily vote on. So the division was tasked with the September 2024 council meeting to examine unintended consequences of transitioning from dockside sales endorsement to the direct sales dealer license. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there, we did this and we really found that there were no unintended consequences. I think the transition from dockside sales to direct sales was virtually seamless. A lot of the dockside sales permit holders were federally permitted as dealers, so they've already been reporting electronically, so there was very little negative feedback that we heard from the issue.
We also have a follow-up on the division task from the April 2025 council meeting that ASMFC management regions for Cobia be reevaluated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, we go. So this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Scott. So in order for us to redo the regions for Cobia, we would have to go through the ASMFC. The reason that the regions were the way they were is because they're very data limited in the north. So we don't have the data to support another region, which would allow Rhode Island more desirable regulations.
Yep, if we could just keep pushing what we can, like just whatever we can, if we can just push back on that one, that would be awesome.
All right, and then there's the final council response to the council regarding public comments made on the April 25th council meeting on minimum size for black sea bass and striped bass management.
Chair, I'll take black sea bass and then I will striped bass to Nicole. So with the commercial black sea bass fishery, the interstate fishery management plan does not allow for conservation equivalency. In other words, we could increase the minimum size, but we don't get any full benefit out of it. Therefore, we don't see any need to move forward with that. Nicole?
And on striped bass, we had received public comment of developing a program similar to that of the state of New York, where they have an ITQ system. We did just recently hold a workshop. There was a proposal for an ITQ system. There was support for the division to further develop that in the future, but overall, stakeholders felt it wasn't ready for 2026. So we will continue to work through that for next year for possible implementation in the future.
Great, thank you for all of those. Yeah.
If I could just ask, so I know that I forget about the COVID, but sooner or later there's going to be another fish, whether it's triggerfish, whether some species, if we can fight early on to not have as part of like Virginia, and if we can fight from the early days as to represent Rhode Island, to try to maybe mass Rhode Island, like something like that, I think it'll avoid us getting hosed when one of the southern states, as the whole starts to move north. Yeah, just in the future, like that would be, because I know the course is out of the water, but if we could, whether it's trigger or whatever, it's going to be some species coming.
Spanish mackerel.
Right, something one of these days is going to get added to our list, and it seems so harmless when we participated in the COVID thing, and then it's really kind of bit us.
It is difficult because it's data driven, and you know, a lot of these species, although they're occurring more frequently in southern New England, to what extent, what magnitude, it's difficult to estimate commercial harvest, recreational harvest, and therefore kind of drive management that benefits, you know, a northern region. So, but point well taken.
So I have one item for any other matters, just as an FYI. Our next couple meetings, we are going to be addressing some very outdated policies and procedures as it pertains to you as council members. One thing that there's nothing to do with the moment, but you might hear, there's a section pertaining to the Shellfish Advisory Panel. And so we issued that to them to solicit comment because it pertains to their governance. And so I just want to offer that this will get sent out to you. This governs you as council members. And this is how we collectively keep each other in check. And so, and it's quite outdated. So this will be coming for our next meeting. And I just want to offer that that's something to really dig into because it's how we govern ourselves. And then Shellfish Advisory Panel members have already been kind of alerted to this based on the section that pertains to them. Is there any other matters?
So, a few of the guys came in tonight, specifically for the striper issue. The gill netters were a little aggrieved that, we can't keep any stripers that we catch, just bycatch. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Come to this, coming to every meeting, it's not on topic. I mean, we're running into these stripers, and we have to throw them over. And now, I don't know how they got their numbers. I do know years ago that you could let the stripers legally abandoned, and now somehow you can't. And I guess years ago when they based this, maybe it was 30, 40 years ago, and maybe task you people to go back and look at this, is that the fish trap, there was numerous, I don't know, we'll just make up a number, 20 active fish trap sites. And now 30 or 40 years later, there's maybe 1 or 2 fish trap sites who aren't catching their quota. And there's using this year, the general category just got opened up to allow extra stripes to be caught, when it's been decades now that if you had a gill netter, you're throwing dead fish over all day long. And I mean, for neighboring states like New York can keep theirs if they bump into as bycatch. They're given tags. I mean, this is an important issue to us. We've been coming and saying it for years, and I mean, something has to be done. This is just not right. It discriminates on gear type is what it does. We're all commercial fishermen. We all have multi-purpose licenses. We're not talking about blue guys here. We wanted to keep bringing it to your attention here. And we keep hearing for the pushback is like, oh look, the stock assessment's bad. The stock of sea bass is bad. The striped bass is bad. It's fickle. It's this. It's that. Well, I mean, the bottom line is if it's that bad, I would rather have you do things right. Close the fishery down if it's that bad, and then open it up fairly for all user groups. To try to pinpoint and point figures at one user group and say, oh, you guys can't catch a fish for a decade. You think I feel good about myself catching stripers and throwing them over dead for a decade? How would you feel if you were in that boat? And you let your neighboring states can land these fish and we can't? I mean, it's ridiculous. So I just figured we sort of skip by striped bass, and I wanted to make sure that that wasn't any indication that we don't feel any less about it. We do. We came here tonight, stayed at the meeting, and I'm sure there's maybe a couple other people who want to say something as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I comment on the striped bass issue? And I thought we were going to discuss the proposals, Nicole. I guess that wasn't happening tonight.
That's at the December 1st council meeting.
Okay. All right. So is that the time to make the comments?
The best time to comment would be during the public comment period when there's a hearing or the written public comment period. That is really the best time to solicit that or to give that commentary. Like right now, they can hear it, but there's the most effective way is when it goes into the e-packet as a written comment.
Yeah, well, that's there. But I was going to comment on the proposal.
Yeah, there's no proposal tonight. Like I would wait until the public comment period.
It's not worth commenting right now then to the council?
Yeah, probably not until it's germane and ready for the December meeting. That's where it's, if you solicit it or if you give that during the public comment hearing period or at the hearing itself, that's when it's the most effective.
Okay, then I won't waste your time.
All right, I have a couple things. Let's get the vessels of landing comments instead of to the person. You don't have the paper captain or product or anything. That's all by the wayside. Number two, I guess we've got to reset the clock on the crab claw situation because there were comments made. I know I made a comment. I was in the sitting right here making a comment, so I don't know how we're gonna get to you guys' feedback. You know, I'm very curious, maybe we need to get someone to look into this stuff. Because you're never gonna get the support, right? The same thing that's gonna happen right here with these crab boats. Gonna end up happening is the 6, maybe a dozen gillnets. And we're gonna be flying the whole rest of the fleet for it, same exact thing. Same thing that happens with the striped bass, you don't get the representation on it. You know, so I wanna look into doing a license for the vessels. Or let an owner, like myself, have a landing permit and a state license. Because right now, the problem that I have is I run my own boats. I own multiple boats. And when I go out fishing on one, I come in and I land and I can't go out on my other boat and land that fish. I can't go out and land my fish from my other federally permitted vessel. I think it's very discriminating. There's not a lot of captains that run boats. So I gotta take a deckhand and go buy him a state license, a landing permit, and land fish on his license. I mean, it's pretty dumb, and we had a license that we had up there before, and you guys vetoed it down. Beat it down, you did not get that license. I don't know one person that can get the license that we pushed through. I don't think there's been one issue. Because it got down to the council, we had a decent thing, and then you guys butchered it all up so much I couldn't get on it. So I think that should come back out looking. That was brought down not from industry, that was brought down through the state and brought it all the way down, and you guys pushed the carriage along to a state license that no one can get it. Have you guys even looked back and see how many guys get that license to the vessel? I'm curious. As being council people, because you guys butchered it up. And there's people that come in here, I'm not trying to say anything, but people shouldn't be going on stuff if they haven't even read some of the material. As being council was being sent here, we shouldn't be questioning about licenses and how it acts. And you guys should know that stuff ahead. Gotta do your homework. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's all. Because everyone needs to know about it. Because really, in the end, there's nothing more I can do. I'm sitting here. So up to you guys, and pretty much whatever you guys go with the director goes. Not too many times the director goes against you. So I'd like for you guys to do some homework on some of these topics before you raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other matters online? All right. Is there any objection to adjourning? Oh, sorry, Pete.
Just, so you get, the next meeting is November 5th that we talked about, just a heads up there. You get the meeting materials this week. The rules are out to notice right now. You get a lister tomorrow. Well, how to submit comments. The ones that went from the last breakdown.
Comments on the proposals from the last workshop. Okay. Okay.
Pete, just to clarify, the November 5th meeting, that's on a Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay. All right. 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Is there
December 1st, but not that one.
Hearing none, meeting adjourned.